Waves are naturally exciting. They come, they break, and seemingly the luckiest surfer of the lot gets to ride one to the beach. But beneath the perceived free-for-all out in the lineup of surfers, there is a complex algorithm being applied, an etiquette system in place to ensure that everyone, from great surfers to beginners, gets their share. In order for this delicate system to be maintained, it's important that as surfers we are all aware and on the same page when it comes to these guidelines. Without them, chaos would ensue. Today I want to share with you those important rules in surfing that clearly no one in the past has explained before, because I find myself constantly shocked at the egregious but often totally unintentional disregard shown for basic surfing etiquette. If you're new here, my name is Kale, I'm a surfer and a filmmaker, and here you'll find all sorts of epic surf content like tutorials to help you surf better, important reviews and more, so subscribe down below and join me on Instagram at KalesBroccoli. I wanted to make a quick announcement about my new Patreon page. It's a membership style setup where for a small cost per month you can access multiple exclusive surf coaching analysis videos every single week from me and my clients. Observing these videos provides invaluable insights into common surfing mistakes and how to fix them to improve your own surfing too. There's also live stream Q&As and more, so check it out at the link in the description below. Just the other day I was surfing one of my local breaks on my own and I found myself sitting out the back in priority. That means the next wave was mine, waiting my turn, only to be snaked by a beginner. A set was approaching and this beginner surfer decided that they would paddle up my inside to be closer to the peak when a great wave came, the wave that I wanted. They decided they were going to go for as well. Now I called out to the person, they kept paddling, so I dropped in on them. When I paddled back out, I paddled over to that surfer and tried to calmly and kindly explain that what he just did was called snaking. Now, rather than apologize or inquire and get more clarification on what snaking actually was, he had no idea. The surfer got offended, got angry, and paddled away frustrated, as did I. This is just one example of a long list of experiences I've had, particularly over the past few months, with so many people surfing. There has been this egregious flaunting of surf etiquette, and as someone who takes pride in trying to follow the rules and be just a nice person out in the water, I take offense to this. Today I'm going to start with the worst type of breaches of surfing etiquette and work my way backwards. Now, in alignment with this opening dialogue, let's talk about snaking. Snaking is probably the most offensive behaviour because it comes with the smell of sneakiness and cowardice. Snaking is essentially cutting in line at the supermarket. It's like someone jumping in front of you to order coffee.
Hi, can I please have a large
But noticing you waiting there patiently.
Yeah, I was.
I'm just going to
Thank
step
you.
in. Can I just get an almond milk latte, please? Yeah. I'm going to use footage of the wave pool down in Melbourne to explain snaking because the wave pool is an even playing field where snaking is virtually impossible to hide. This here is a line, a queue of surfers waiting to take their turn to catch a wave at the peak. The surfer at the top of the line takes a wave and then the next person behind moves forward to take his place and take the next wave, and so on. It is beautiful, it is idealistic, it is democratic. But a snake doesn't care about democracy. A snake will bypass other surfers, cut in ahead of them to take a wave out of turn. Often, and we're back in the ocean now, this looks like a surfer paddling to the inside of the peak in order to gain a priority position even though he or she doesn't fairly have it. The next wave that comes, at face value, looks like it belongs to the surfer closest to the peak, the snake. However, in reality, it belongs to the surfer who was sitting at the peak waiting the longest before the snake came along. I think the worst kind of snake is the friendly snake. Someone who snakes like unknowingly and kind of just like saunters up the inside and just sits here sort of looking at the sky and sort of smiling stupidly. Everybody sees you. Everybody knows what you're doing. And this is a big mistake, I think, that a lot of uninformed surfers make. It's that the lineup is this sort of free-for-all scenario where anybody can catch any wave. It's not. If you want a free-for-all situation, let's go for it, because better surfers will out-position you, they'll out-paddle you, and they'll catch every single good wave that comes through, leaving you only the dregs. The rules are in place to protect your rights as a human to ensure that everybody gets to take their turn. There are kind of a few exceptions to the snaking rule. Sometimes snaking might unintentionally occur in a random peak setting. That is, where there is no established peak or wave, and thus it does become a luck of the draw type scenario. Also, there may be people sitting further inside on an established peak and thus putting themselves out of contention for the main sets, which means you could consciously and kindly bypass them. Put simply though, the closer you are to people, the more conscious you need to be of whose turn it is to catch a wave. There's something to be said here about just being a nice person. If you're a good person, you'll probably naturally work out this sort of algorithm, this flow, all on your own, and it can be very easily achieved, especially in low density lineups. The only one true exception, I think, to this rule is at beginner-only locations. Paddling out and trying to enforce some sort of benevolent dictatorship on a bunch of frothing groms or people on 8-foot foamies, I think is a waste of time. As far as I'm concerned, you bring chaos upon yourself if you choose to paddle out at these types of places. Alright, let's move on and talk about the drop-in. Dropping in on someone is like stealing their coffee after they've paid for it.
I'll take that.
Put simply, a surfer who has waited for a wave and taken it has another surfer take the wave also, messing up the section or even worse, tumbling down in front of them. It is incredibly dangerous to do, and it can be avoided with communication and awareness. It is the responsibility of the surfer deeper on the peak, whose turn it is, to call out and warn the offender of their presence, and it is the outside surfer's responsibility to pull back from the wave safely without crumbling the lip onto the surfer on the wave. Dropping in is pretty simple. Don't do it. Of course, sometimes mistakes do happen. If they do and you're the offender, be kind, be apologetic, and move on. There are some exceptions too. A surfer might be too deep on the wave to make it around a section, and thus the rest of the wave is up for grabs. This should be done carefully to avoid ruining their wave or their chance to make the section. I think the only time when a drop-in is almost permitted, in my opinion, is when someone has snaked into position for that given wave. But this has to be done carefully and with a lot of confidence, I think, in your own abilities, because again, as I've said, dropping in on someone is inherently dangerous. It's your responsibility as much as the offending snake. Now, an exception to this might be ability level. If someone like Kelly Slater wants to paddle up my inside and snake me, I'm probably going to let him, and I'm going to watch him, and I'm going to enjoy watching him surf. Similarly, if I can see that someone grew up surfing this break, it's totally their own and I'm an intruder, I'm visiting for the day, I might allow a little bit more wiggle room for them to take the waves that they want, just out of respect. The point is, you need to read the situation carefully and kindly. Now, on that note, let's talk about localism. I'm a fan of localism, conscious localism. It instills a protective sense of ownership and responsibility for one's local breaks, and I truly believe that without it, some of the breaks that I grew up surfing would be getting drilled for oil by now. That's the good side of it. The ugly side of it is when it gets taken too far. Nobody owns the ocean, you're right, but I think locals deserve respect, and you can avoid giving offence by just taking a few measures if you're venturing out to new breaks. For instance, don't rock up in a group of more than 2 surfers. Insta crowds are a sight for sore eyes, and it's incredibly frustrating as a patient local who's trying to keep your breaks on the down low. If you are travelling unavoidably as a group, then think about scattering yourselves not only throughout the lineup, but also how you enter the lineup. So edge your way into the water in maybe individually or in groups of 2 rather than 5. Just these tiny measures just offer up a balm for the natural offensiveness and frustration that people feel towards Insta crowds. Now, and this is also really key, if the spot is somewhat down low and you're not from there, don't go taking a bunch of photos on your DSLR or on your phone, because people just assume you're going to upload them to Instagram and blow the spot out the water. We've touched on a handful of surfing's rules, all of which are in place to ensure that everybody gets to enjoy the sport, take their turn, and be safe out in the water. Learning surfing's etiquette is, I think, as important a part of your journey as your on-wave surfing progression, which, if you're interested in moving along faster, means you should check out my new Patreon page. It contains a stack of detailed short surfing analysis clips to get you from beginner to intermediate and from intermediate to advanced. I'd like to thank all of the 50 people who have already joined, and I look forward to helping even more of you progress in the future. There's quite a lot more that we could talk about in this video, but for time's sake, we will cut it there. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. I hope to see you very soon. Remember to subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and let me know in the comments what else you want me to cover in upcoming videos. You can join me on Instagram at Kale's Broccoli. Yo.